The council chamber stretched across 3 levels of the station, each tier representing a different age of galactic civilization. Holographic displays flickered along curved walls, showing star maps and trade routes that connected thousands of worlds. Representatives from 47 species filled the seats, their forms ranging from the crystalline Xylanthians to the gas-dwelling Ethons who floated in containment spheres. At the center of it all, raised on a platform of ancient metal, sat the Council of Elders, and among them, one seat remained empty. Kaleth stood at the observation deck above the main floor, her silver eyes tracking the proceedings below. She had attended 3 council sessions in her 200 years of life, and each time that vacant seat drew her attention like a wound that refused to heal. The metal chair sat there untouched and pristine, as if waiting for someone who would never arrive. Her companion, Vacant, shifted beside her. The dragon had compressed his form to fit the station corridors, but even diminished, his presence commanded attention. Scales that resembled starlight caught the ambient glow from the displays, creating small rainbows across the observation deck floor. A Xanthari delegate was speaking now, his forearms gesturing as he discussed mining quotas in the outer rim. Kaleth barely listened. She had been hired for a different purpose entirely, and council politics held little interest for her. The mercenary life suited her better than diplomacy. Someone approached from behind. Kaleth turned to find Ambassador Lyra, her crystalline form refracting light into geometric patterns. The Xylanthian moved with careful precision, each step calculated and deliberate. Lyra began to speak in the harmonic tones of her species. "We detected unusual readings near the Forbidden Rim. The Council wishes to hire your services for investigation." Kaleth nodded slowly. She had heard of the Forbidden Rim, that stretch of space where few ships dared to travel. Pirates and smugglers used it as a hideaway, but even they stayed close to the edges. Something about the deeper regions unsettled even the most hardened criminals. "What kind of readings?" Kaleth asked. "Energy signatures that match no known technology," Lyra replied. The harmonics in her voice shifted, indicating concern. They appeared near the Sol system quarantine barrier. The observation deck suddenly felt colder. Kaleth glanced at Vacant, whose eyes had narrowed to slits. The dragon knew, as she did, that the Sol system was not discussed in polite company. The quarantine had been in place for as long as the council itself had existed, perhaps longer. No one entered that region of space. No one even flew near it. Below them, the Xanthari delegate had finished speaking. Council leader Thane, an elderly Morphean whose skin held the color of deep ocean water, called for the next item on the agenda. But Lyra was already moving toward the council floor, her crystalline body chiming softly with each step. Kaleth watched as the ambassador approached the center platform. Lyra waited for acknowledgement before speaking, and when Thane gestured for her to proceed, the entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. "Honored Council," Lyra began, her harmonics carrying across the vast space. "Our monitoring stations have detected anomalous energy patterns near the Sol barrier. 3 separate readings over the past lunar cycle, each stronger than the last." The reaction was immediate. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others began whispering among themselves, creating a sound like wind through dead leaves. Thane raised one webbed hand, calling for silence. "The Sol system is under permanent quarantine," he stated, his voice firm. "This has not changed in 3,000 cycles. The barrier remains intact, but the readings suggest activity," Lyra pressed. "Should we not investigate?" Thane's expression hardened. "The matter is closed, Ambassador. Return to your duties." The dismissal was absolute. Lyra bowed and retreated, but Kaleth saw the confusion in the ambassador's movements. Something was wrong here, something deeper than simple politics. Vacant rumbled softly, a sound that Kaleth felt more than heard. The dragon was thinking, processing what they had witnessed. In 2 centuries together, she had learned to read his moods, and right now, Vacant was troubled. They left the observation deck and made their way through the station corridors. Arcturus Prime was a neutral ground, built at the intersection of 3 major trade routes. Ships from across the galaxy docked here, bringing goods and information in equal measure. The station itself was ancient, predating even the council, though no one remembered who had built it. Kaleth headed for the lower levels where the data archives were kept. If she was going to investigate the Forbidden Rim, she needed information. The archives were public, maintained by the Archivists Guild, a neutral organization dedicated to preserving galactic history. The archive chamber was quiet, filled with rows of data crystals and holographic terminals. An elderly archivist, his species unknown to Calith, sat at the entrance. He barely glanced up as she entered, waving one thin hand toward the terminals. She began her search with the Forbidden Rim, pulling up star charts and historical records. Most of it was mundane, reports of mineral deposits and navigational hazards. But when she cross-referenced the region with military records, something caught her attention. Every major conflict in the past 3 millennia had one pattern in common. No matter which species was involved, no matter how desperate the situation, no force had ever approached the Sol system. Wars had been fought around it, trade routes carefully plotted to avoid it, but the quarantine remained absolute. Calith dug deeper, following threads of data that seemed to lead nowhere. She found classified files locked behind encryption that would take years to break, but one file was different, marked with a simple designation that made her blood run cold. Deterrence Protocol. Active. The file was old, dating back to before the Council formation. Someone had created a defensive network around the Sol system, something powerful enough that every species in the galaxy had agreed to avoid it. But who had that kind of power? And more importantly, what were they protecting? Vacant moved closer, his massive head lowering to examine the display. Dragons could read data streams directly, processing information faster than most organic minds. His eyes began to glow softly as he absorbed the contents of various files. Then he pulled back sharply, a hiss escaping his jaws. "What is it?" Calith asked. "Old memories," the dragon replied, his mental voice heavy with recognition. From before the Council, before the Great Alliance, there were species then, powerful ones, that challenged the natural order. Which species? Vacant was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke a name that Calith did not recognize. The Vex Collective. She searched for the name in the archives but found nothing. No records, no references, not even a footnote. It was as if the species had never existed. "That is impossible," she said. "The archives contain records going back 10,000 cycles. They would not miss an entire species, unless someone removed them," Vacant suggested. Before Calith could respond, an alarm began wailing throughout the station. Emergency lights flickered to life, casting everything in harsh red tones. The elderly archivist stood abruptly, his expression shifting to one of alarm. Calith ran for the exit, Vacant close behind. They made their way back to the main corridors where crowds of people were moving in confused masses. Station security was trying to maintain order, but panic was spreading like fire. She grabbed a passing security officer, demanding to know what was happening. "Unknown vessel approaching the station," the officer replied, pulling free from her grip. "Broadcasting no identification. Council is evacuating to secure levels." Calith pushed through the crowd, making her way to her ship. It was docked in the lower bay, a sleek vessel built for speed and stealth. Vacant could fly through space on his own, but having a ship made long journeys more practical. As they reached the docking bay, Calith's personal comm device activated. A message came through, encrypted with her private codes. She opened it, expecting a contract cancellation from the Council. Instead, she found something that made her heart race. It was a distress signal, old and repeating. The language was unknown, but her ship's computer began translating it automatically. The words appeared on her display, simple and direct. "This is Earth, we are still here. Come find us." The signal was coming from inside the Sol system, from beyond the quarantine barrier. From the very place that the entire galaxy had been avoiding for 3,000 years, Calith looked at Vacant. The dragon met her gaze, and she saw the same curiosity burning in his ancient eyes. They had spent 2 centuries seeking mysteries, chasing legends across the stars, and now the greatest mystery of all was calling to them. She initiated her ship's launch sequence. Whatever was in the Sol system, whatever had kept the galaxy at bay for millennia, she was going to find it. The Council could keep their secrets. Calith had never been good at following rules anyway. As her ship lifted from the docking bay, she set course for the quarantine barrier. Behind her, Arcturus Prime continued its emergency protocols, but she was no longer paying attention. Her instruments began picking up readings as they approached the restricted zone. Thousands of energy signatures that should not exist. Ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All waiting in perfect silence, arranged in geometric patterns that suggested military precision. And at the center of it all, one signal burned brighter than the rest. A beacon, calling across the void, speaking in a language that predated the council itself. Kaleth's hands tightened on the controls. Whatever she found beyond that barrier, whatever truth the galaxy had been hiding, she was about to discover it. And something told her that once she crossed that threshold, nothing would ever be the same again. The quarantine barrier loomed ahead, a wall of energy that shimmered like heat waves. Her instruments screamed warnings, but she did not slow down. Vacant settled into his position, his presence a comfort in the growing uncertainty. Then they crossed the barrier, and everything changed. The moment Kaleth's ship crossed the barrier, every system on board went dark. Emergency lights flickered on, casting the cockpit in a dim red glow. Her navigation display showed nothing but static, and the engines had stopped responding to her commands. They were drifting, helpless in the void. Vacant remained calm beside her, his ancient mind reaching out through the darkness. The dragon could sense things that technology could not, and right now he was focused on something ahead of them. "We are being watched," he said into her mind. Many eyes, many weapons, all pointed at us. Kaleth tried to restart her systems, but nothing responded. Her ship was completely disabled, frozen in space like an insect in amber. She had expected defenses, but not this. Whatever controlled the Sol system had technology far beyond anything she had encountered. Then, without warning, her communication system activated on its own. A voice spoke, clear and precise, in a language she had not heard in over a century. Ancient Elvish, the formal dialect used by her ancestors before they left their homeworld. "State your purpose, daughter of Eldaron. You have 30 seconds. Kaleth's heart raced. How did they know her lineage? How did they know a language that had been dead for generations? She activated her response channel, speaking carefully in the same ancient tongue. "I am Kaleth, seeker of truth. I received a distress signal from this system. I came to investigate." Silence followed. She counted the seconds, aware that somewhere in the darkness weapons were trained on her ship. Vacant remained still, his breathing slow and measured. Then her main display activated, showing the face of a human woman. She wore a uniform of deep blue with symbols that Kaleth did not recognize. Her hair was dark, pulled back in a practical style, and her eyes were the color of Earth's oceans in the old stories. "I am Commander Maya Carter of the Silent Fleet," the woman said. Her voice carried authority, the kind that came from years of command. "Your genetic markers show acceptable parameters. You may proceed to Luna Base for processing. Any deviation from the provided course will result in immediate termination." A navigation route appeared on Kaleth's display. Her ship's engines reactivated, but she quickly realized she had no actual control. The ship was flying itself, following the preset course with perfect precision. They flew deeper into the Sol system, passing between massive defense platforms that hung in space like sleeping giants. Each one bristled with weapons that defied classification. Vacant studied them intently, his ancient knowledge trying to categorize what he was seeing. "Those are not conventional weapons," the dragon said. "They bend space itself. They manipulate time and matter at fundamental levels. This is technology that should not exist." As they approached the moon, Kaleth saw more ships. Thousands of them, arranged in perfect formations that stretched across entire orbital paths. They were sleek and dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Each one radiated power, even in their dormant state. Luna Base came into view, a massive structure built into the moon's surface. Parts of it were clearly ancient, while other sections looked newly constructed. The base extended deep underground, its true size impossible to judge from the surface. Her ship landed in a designated bay, guided by the same invisible control that had brought her here. The bay doors sealed behind her with a finality that made her nervous. She had walked into many dangerous situations in her 2 centuries of life, but this felt different. This felt like entering the den of a predator that had been waiting patiently for prey. Maya Carter was waiting for them in the docking bay, accompanied by 2 guards in similar uniforms. The guards carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy. Their eyes never left Kaleth and Vacant as the pair descended from the ship. "Welcome to Luna Base," Maya said. Her tone was formal but not hostile. You are the first outsider to enter this system in 3,000 years. That makes you either very brave or very foolish. Kalith met the commander's gaze. Perhaps both. I seek answers about why the galaxy fears this place. Maya considered this for a moment, then gestured for them to follow. She led them through corridors that were both familiar and alien. The architecture reminded Kalith of ancient elven designs, but twisted into something more utilitarian. Everything here served a purpose, nothing was decorative. They passed through multiple security checkpoints, each one scanning them with technologies that made Kalith's skin prickle. Varath had to compress his form even further to fit through some of the passages, but the dragon made no complaint. Eventually, they reached a large chamber filled with holographic displays. A woman stood at the center, manipulating data streams with practiced ease. She was older than Maya, with gray streaking through her brown hair, and she wore the casual clothing of a researcher rather than a uniform. "This is Kate Morgan," Maya said. "She is our chief historian. If you want answers, she can provide them." Kate looked up from her work, her eyes sharp despite her age. "An elf and a dragon," she said, a slight smile crossing her face. "How wonderfully appropriate. Come, let me show you something." She activated a holographic display that filled half the chamber. Images appeared showing star systems and fleet movements. Kalith recognized some of the locations, places that were now thriving council worlds. 5,000 years ago, Kate began, humanity was expanding into space. We were young, naive, excited to find other civilizations, and we did find them. We found the Vex Collective. The name made Varath tense. Kalith remembered the dragon mentioning that species in the archives, the ones that had no records. The Vex were an old species, Kate continued. They had technology that made ours look like stone tools. They were conquerors, moving through the galaxy and consuming every species they encountered, not just defeating them but erasing them, absorbing their genetic material, their culture, their very existence into the collective. The holographic display showed images of the Vex. They were horrifying. Creatures of metal and flesh merged into something that defied natural law. They moved like a swarm, overwhelming entire worlds with their numbers. They came to Earth expecting an easy conquest, Kate said. Her voice grew harder. They were wrong. What happened? Kalith asked. We destroyed them, Maya said simply. Not just their fleets, not just their worlds. We erased them so completely that even the memory of their species was removed from galactic history. Every record, every mention, every trace. Gone. But how? Kalith demanded. You said they were more advanced. They were, Kate agreed. But they made one crucial mistake. They assumed we would fight them the way other species had fought them, with conventional weapons, with traditional tactics. They did not understand human creativity, our willingness to break every rule to survive. Kate pulled up new images. These showed weapons that made Kalith's blood run cold, devices that could collapse stars, engines that could tear holes in reality itself, machines that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. We learned to weaponize everything, Kate said. Time, space, consciousness itself. We became something that the Vex could not comprehend. And when we were done, we made sure no one would ever know they existed. Because if other species knew what we were capable of, they would try to stop us, and that would force us to demonstrate our capabilities again. Kalith felt a chill run down her spine. So you hid. You quarantined yourselves to protect the galaxy from knowing what you could do. Partly, Maya said, but also to protect ourselves. War changes people. The things we did to survive, the lines we crossed, they left scars. We needed time to remember what it meant to be human, to not be the monsters we had to become. And the Council, Kalith asked. They know about this. They suspect, Kate replied. The older species remember fragments, whispers of the Vex. They know something terrible happened here. That is why Earth's seat remains empty. Not because we were excluded, but because we chose to exclude ourselves. The moment we sit at that table, we become part of galactic politics. And eventually, someone will make a mistake. Someone will threaten us, attack us, force us to respond. And when that happens, Maya said, meeting Kalith's eyes, the galaxy will learn why we were left alone. Varath spoke then, his mental voice carrying to everyone in the room. I remember the old days before the Council. There were whispers among my kind, stories of a war that broke the universe itself. We thought they were myths. But they were about you, were they not? Yes, Kate said softly. Dragons fought in that war. Some sided with us, others with the Vex. Those who survived chose to leave, to spread across the galaxy and forget. You are perhaps the first dragon to return to the Sol system since then. Before Veyrath could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the base. Red lights flashed, and the holographic displays shifted to show tactical information. Maya moved instantly, her casual demeanor replaced by the focused intensity of a combat commander. What is it? She demanded. A young officer appeared on one of the displays. Commander, we have incoming ships. Synthari fleet, 2,000 strong. They are broadcasting demands for our surrender. They want our technology. They think the stories about Earth are just myths meant to scare their enemies. Maya's expression went cold. How long until they reach engagement range? 14 hours, the officer replied. Kaleth watched as Maya took a deep breath, then straightened her shoulders. The commander looked at Kate, and something unspoken passed between them. Years of preparation, of hoping this day would never come, all crashing down in a single moment. Maya turned back to the display. Activate defense grid. Wake the fleet. Send out the warning on all frequencies, standard protocols. She looked at Kaleth then, and the elf saw something in the commander's eyes that terrified her. It was not anger or fear. It was sadness, the kind that came from knowing what was about to happen and being unable to stop it. You wanted to know why the galaxy fears this place, Maya said quietly. You wanted to see what we are capable of. In 14 hours you will have your answer, and I am sorry for what you are about to witness. Kate moved to another console, her fingers flying across the controls. Ancient systems were coming online, defense platforms that had been dormant for millennia awakening to face a new threat. Throughout the Sol system, the silent fleet began to move, their dark forms shifting into attack formations. Kaleth realized then what was happening. The Zinthari, in their arrogance, were about to make the same mistake the Vex had made. They were about to attack humanity, and humanity was going to show the galaxy exactly why Earth's seat had remained vacant for 3,000 years. Veyrath pressed closer to her, his presence a comfort in the growing tension. The dragon had survived countless battles, had lived through ages that most species could not imagine. But even he seemed uncertain about what was coming. Maya began issuing orders, her voice calm and professional. The humans around her moved with practiced efficiency, each one knowing their role in the coming defense. This was not a military scrambling to prepare. This was a machine that had been ready for 3 millennia, simply waiting for the moment it would be needed. And now that moment had arrived. The galaxy was about to remember why some doors should never be opened, why some species should be left alone, why Earth's empty seat was not an invitation, but a warning. Kaleth could only watch as humanity prepared to defend itself, and deep in her ancient soul, she wondered if the Zinthari had any idea what they had just awakened. The war room deep within Luna Base hummed with quiet activity. Dozens of human officers moved between stations, their faces illuminated by tactical displays showing the approaching Zinthari fleet. 2,000 warships, the pride of the Zinthari Empire, advancing in perfect formation toward the Sol system. They had no idea what awaited them. Kaleth stood at the edge of the room watching as Maya coordinated the defense. The commander moved with absolute confidence, issuing orders that sent defense platforms into position and activated systems that had been sleeping for millennia. Beside Maya stood 2 other senior officers, Lisa Chen and Beth Cooper, both wearing the same blue uniforms and carrying themselves with the same quiet authority. We need to try diplomacy, Kaleth said, stepping forward. Let me contact their commander. Perhaps I can make them understand. Maya looked at her, and for a moment something like pity crossed her face. You can try, but it will not work. Admiral Claire Henson leads that fleet. She is convinced that Earth is a myth, that the Council has been using ghost stories to control the outer systems. She has spent years pushing for this confrontation. Still, Kaleth pressed, trying is better than immediate war. Maya nodded and gestured to a communications officer. Open a channel to the Zinthari flagship. Route it through here. The main display shifted, showing the bridge of a Zinthari warship. Admiral Henson sat in the command chair, her forearms crossed in a gesture of confidence. Behind her, Kaleth could see rows of weapon stations and tactical officers. This was a military force that had never known defeat. I am Kaleth, the elf said, speaking clearly. I am an independent mercenary with no allegiance to Earth. I have seen what they are capable of. Please turn back before it is too late. Henson laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the communication link. You have been fooled by human tricks, elf. There is nothing here but an abandoned system and old stories. We will take their technology and prove to the Council that there is nothing to fear. You do not understand, Kalith said urgently. They destroyed an entire species so thoroughly that no one remembers they existed. They have weapons that can break reality itself. This is not a fight you can win. Then let them try to stop us, Henson replied. We have 2,000 ships, the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. If Earth has such power, why do they hide? Why do they not sit at the council table and claim their place? Because they are weak. Because they fear us. The channel closed. Kalith turned to Maya, searching for any sign that the commander would reconsider. But Maya simply nodded to her officers, accepting what was coming. Veyrath moved closer to Kalith, his massive presence filling one corner of the war room. The dragon had been silent since they arrived, his ancient mind processing everything he was witnessing. Now he spoke, his mental voice carrying to everyone present. I remember now, he said. The old stories my ancestors told. The war that broke the sky, humans fighting alongside dragons against the darkness. I thought they were legends, myths to teach younglings about courage. But they were real. All of it was real. Maya turned to face the dragon fully. Your kind helped us once. Some of you fought with us against the Vex. Others chose to leave after they saw what we became. We never blamed them for leaving. War changes everyone, even dragons. Veyrath lowered his great head, his eyes glowing with inner fire. My ancestors made a choice born of fear. They saw humanity become something terrifying, and they fled rather than stand beside you. That was wrong. I will not repeat their mistake. The dragon moved to the center of the room, his scales beginning to shimmer with power. He spoke in a voice that resonated with ancient authority, words that had not been spoken in this system for thousands of years. Veyrath of the eternal fire, pledge my flame to the defense of this realm. Let the stars bear witness. Let the void remember. Dragon fire shall burn beside human will, as it did in the days before fear divided us. The room fell silent. Even the human officers who had seen countless wonders seemed moved by the dragon's oath. Kate Morgan stepped forward, her historian's mind recognizing the significance of what had just occurred. The last time a dragon made such an oath to humanity, she said softly, it was before the war with the Vex. This is not just symbolic. This is the rekindling of an alliance that shaped the galaxy. Maya inclined her head toward Veyrath. We are honored by your oath, Ancient One, though I wish we were reuniting under better circumstances. The tactical display updated. The Zenthari fleet had increased speed. They would reach engagement range in less than an hour. Kalith felt helpless, watching as two forces moved toward collision. She was a warrior, had fought in countless battles, but this felt different. This felt like watching a natural disaster unfold, inevitable and unstoppable. What will you do? Kalith asked Maya. How will you defend against 2,000 warships? Maya exchanged glances with Lisa and Beth. All three women wore the same expression, a mixture of resignation and determination. We will do what we must, Maya said. We will defend our home, and we will show the galaxy why attacking humanity is a mistake that no species should ever make. The final minutes passed in tense silence. The Zenthari fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, their ships spreading into an attack formation that covered millions of kilometers. They were magnificent, a display of military power that would make any enemy hesitate. Admiral Henson broadcast on all frequencies. People of Earth, surrender your technology and join the Zenthari Empire. You have 1 hour to comply. Failure to respond will be considered an act of war. Maya stepped to the communication station and opened a response channel. Her voice when she spoke was calm and clear. No, that single word seemed to hang in the space between fleets. Henson appeared on the display again, her expression shifting from confidence to anger. Then you have chosen destruction, the Admiral said. All ships advance. Weapons free. Show these humans what happens to those who defy the Empire. The Zenthari fleet surged forward. 2,000 warships, their weapons charging, moving as one coordinated mass. Kalith gripped the edge of the console, her heart racing. The human fleet had not moved. The defense platforms remained dark. Nothing was happening. Maya, what are you doing? Kaleth demanded. Watch, the commander replied simply. The Xanthari ships crossed an invisible line. Their weapons fired, brilliant beams of energy that could vaporize small moons. But the weapons never reached their targets. Space itself seemed to twist, bending the energy back toward the ships that fired it. Xanthari warships began firing on each other, their targeting systems completely overridden. Chaos erupted across the enemy fleet. Ships tried to maneuver away from their own weapons, but their navigation systems had been compromised. They spun out of control, colliding with each other in slow motion. Communication channels filled with panicked voices as Xanthari crews realized they had lost all control of their vessels. Throughout the entire engagement, not a single human weapon had fired. Not a single defense platform had activated its guns. Earth had simply turned the Xanthari fleet against itself, using technology that made their ships into liabilities rather than assets. In 15 minutes, it was over. 2,000 warships floated dead in space, their power cores shut down, their weapons disabled, their crews alive but helpless. Not a single life had been lost, but the Xanthari Empire's pride had been shattered absolutely. Maya opened a channel that broadcast across all frequencies, reaching not just the Xanthari but every listening station in the galaxy. This is Commander Maya Carter of Earth's Silent Fleet. What you have witnessed is our only warning. We do not seek war. We do not seek dominion. We seek only to be left alone. The Xanthari crews will be returned safely to Council space. Their ships will follow as monuments to this mistake. Let all species understand this simple truth. Earth's seat remains empty because we choose to protect the galaxy from what we can become. Do not make us choose otherwise. The broadcast ended. The war room remained silent as the implications settled over everyone present. The Xanthari had just learned what the Council had suspected for 3,000 years. Humanity possessed power that made conventional military force irrelevant. Kaleth's personal communication device activated. It was an encrypted message from Ambassador Lyra and the Council. She opened it, her hands shaking slightly. The message was brief but devastating. The Council demanded she assassinate the human leadership immediately, while they were distracted by the Xanthari situation. They claimed humanity was too dangerous to exist and must be eliminated before they became an active threat. Kaleth looked at the message, then at Maya and her officers. These humans had just demonstrated incredible restraint. They could have destroyed the Xanthari fleet completely, but they chose mercy. They could have killed every crew member, but they chose to preserve life. She deleted the message. I received orders from the Council, she said aloud. They wanted me to kill you. I refused. Maya nodded, unsurprised. We expected as much. Fear makes people do desperate things. What are you really protecting the galaxy from? Kaleth asked. What is the truth you have not told me? Before Maya could answer, alarms blared again. But these were different, deeper, carrying a resonance that made Kaleth's bones ache. Every display in the war room shifted to show the same thing. Long-range sensors at the edge of the galaxy were detecting massive energy signatures. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Kate Morgan moved to the main display, her face draining of color. She pulled up analysis data, compared it against historical records, then turned to Maya with an expression of pure dread. The patterns match, Kate said, her voice barely above a whisper. It is the same signatures from 5,000 years ago, the same readings that preceded the Vex invasion. Maya closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, Kaleth saw something she had not seen before. Fear. Real. Genuine fear in the eyes of a woman who commanded weapons that could break reality. They are coming back, Maya said. The things that drove the Vex to us in the first place. The things that the Vex were fleeing from. We destroyed the Vex, but we could not reach what was chasing them. Now they have finally arrived. What are they? Kaleth demanded. Maya looked at her directly. We call them the Devourers. They consume galaxies, feeding on sentient consciousness itself. The Vex tried to warn us before we destroyed them, but we did not understand. We have spent 3,000 years preparing for their arrival, building weapons, developing defenses, hoping we would have enough time. And now they are here, Beth Cooper said quietly. Maya turned to Kaleth, and the commander's next words changed everything. This is why we stayed hidden. This is why we prepared. And this is why we need your help. Earth cannot defend the galaxy alone. We need the Council. We need every species working together. Will you help us convince them? Kalith looked at Veyrath. The dragon met her gaze, and she felt his ancient wisdom flowing into her mind. This was bigger than politics, bigger than fear. This was survival for every living being in the galaxy. She nodded. Yes, I will help you. We will face this together. The council chamber on Arcturus Prime had never been so full. Every species sent their highest representatives, crowding into spaces meant for half their numbers. They came because they had no choice. The sensor readings from the galactic rim left no room for doubt. Something massive was approaching, and the energy signatures matched nothing in any known database. Ambassador Lyra stood at the center platform, her crystalline form refracting the emergency lighting into anxious patterns. Beside her stood Maya Carter, the first human to officially enter the council chamber in 3,000 years. The silence was absolute as Lyra began to speak. The readings are conclusive. Multiple entities approaching from beyond the rim. Their signatures suggest they feed on consciousness itself. Earth has identified them as the Devourers, the same threat that drove the Vex Collective into our galaxy 5 millennia ago. Murmurs of fear rippled through the assembled delegates. The Vex were a name spoken in whispers, a legend that older species remembered in fragments. If something had been chasing them, what hope did the current galaxy have? Maya stepped forward and every eye turned to her. She had changed into formal attire but still wore the insignia of the Silent Fleet. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly across the vast chamber. Humanity has been preparing for this moment for 3,000 years. We knew the Devourers would come eventually. We have weapons and defenses that can fight them, but we cannot protect the entire galaxy alone. We need unity. We need every species working together. A delegate from the Morphean Collective stood, his blue skin darkening with agitation. Why should we trust humans? You have hidden from us. You demonstrated power that makes our fleets irrelevant. How do we know you will not turn that power against us once the Devourers are defeated? Because we chose not to, Maya replied simply. When the Zenthari attacked, we could have destroyed them. We chose mercy. When the Council ordered my assassination, we chose understanding. We have had the power to conquer for 3,000 years. We chose isolation instead. That should tell you everything you need to know about human intentions. Kalith stepped forward from where she had been standing with Veyrath. The elf wore her combat gear, prepared for what was coming. She had spent the journey to Arcturus Prime convincing wavering delegates to attend, using her reputation as an independent mercenary to validate Maya's claims. I have seen Earth's capabilities, Kalith said. I have witnessed their restraint. More importantly, I have seen their fear. Commander Carter and her people are afraid of the Devourers. If beings with their power are afraid, then we should all be terrified. Our only chance is to stand together. Veyrath added his voice, the dragon's mental presence touching every mind in the chamber. I am ancient beyond your counting. I remember the old wars. I remember when dragons and humans fought side by side against darkness. That alliance was broken by fear. I will not allow history to repeat itself. The dragons will fight. The question is, will you? The council debated for hours. Some species wanted to flee, to abandon the galaxy entirely. Others proposed surrender, hoping the Devourers could be reasoned with. But slowly, reluctantly, a consensus emerged. They would fight. They would accept Earth's leadership in the coming war. Lauren Price, a young Zelanthian empath, approached Maya after the council adjourned. She was different from Ambassador Lyra, her crystalline form smaller and more fluid. When she spoke, her harmonics carried genuine warmth. I can sense your emotions, Commander. You carry great sorrow. What burdens do you bear that we cannot see? Maya looked at the empath for a long moment, then made a decision. Come with me. There are things the council should know, things I have kept private until now. They returned to Luna Base, bringing with them key council members including Lyra and Lauren. Kate Morgan met them in a secure chamber, one that held records sealed for millennia. The historian's expression was grave as she activated ancient holographic displays. The truth about the Devourers is more terrible than we admitted, Kate began. They are not simply alien predators. They are human. Shocked silence filled the chamber. Even Kalith, who had thought she understood the situation, felt her world tilting. Kate continued, pulling up records that showed a colony ship called Prometheus. 8,000 years ago, before the Council existed, humanity sent deep space missions to explore beyond the galactic rim. Prometheus was one such ship, carrying 10,000 colonists. They never returned. The display showed sensor logs from ancient Earth stations. The Prometheus had encountered something in the void between galaxies, something vast and dead. An elder entity, a being that existed before stars formed. The colonists had tried to study it, to understand its nature. Instead, they merged with it, seeking power to survive. The hostile environment. They became the devourers, Maya said quietly, our own people, twisted into something that feeds on consciousness to sustain their existence. They consumed everything in their original galaxy, then began moving toward ours. The Vex Collective was their first target here. We destroyed the Vex before learning the full truth. Lauren's crystalline form began to pulse with distress. You have been preparing to fight your own descendants, to kill what your species became, Maya nodded. Now you understand why we isolated ourselves. We carry the potential to become the very monsters we must destroy. Every human knows this. Every child is taught about the Prometheus and what happened to them. It is our greatest shame and our greatest fear. Kaleth felt something shifting in her understanding. She looked at Maya with new eyes, seeing the weight the commander carried. To fight corrupted versions of your own species, to spend thousands of years preparing to destroy what you might become, that required a strength she had not fully appreciated. There is more, Kate said softly. She pulled up genetic records comparing Kaleth's DNA with ancient samples. Your people, the elves, have your own connection to this history. What do you mean? Kaleth demanded. The elves were not always separate from humanity, Kate explained. Millennia ago, before the Prometheus disaster, there was a genetic divergence. Some humans were modified, enhanced with longer lifespans and different abilities. They became the first elves. But when the Prometheus fell and humanity faced the possibility of becoming monsters, the elves chose to leave. They feared they would be corrupted as well. Kaleth staggered backward. Varath moved to support her, his presence steady. The dragon had known, she realized. He had known all along about the connection between humans and elves. My ancestors fled, Kaleth whispered. They abandoned humanity when the danger came. They were afraid, Maya said, and there was no judgment in her voice. Fear makes us all choose paths we later regret. The elves scattered across the galaxy, hiding their origins, building new civilizations. Your homeworld was established by refugees who wanted to forget their connection to Earth. Why are you telling me this now? Kaleth asked. Because you need to understand what is at stake, Maya replied. The Devourers destroyed your homeworld 3,000 years ago. The official records say it was a natural disaster, a stellar collapse. That was a lie. The Devourers came and your world fell. The survivors fled and integrated with other elf communities, never knowing the truth. Kaleth felt her legs weaken. Her homeworld. Her people, destroyed by corrupted humans, by the very thing Maya had been preparing to fight. The weight of it was crushing. Varath spoke gently into her mind. This is why I stayed with you, young one. Your bloodline carries memories of that destruction, buried deep in your genetic code. I swore an oath to your ancestors to protect their descendants until the day came when the truth could be faced. That day has arrived. Maya moved closer. I am sorry you had to learn this way. But the Devourers are coming for everyone now. They have consumed everything else in their path. This galaxy is all that remains. If we do not stop them here, every civilization will fall. Human, elf, dragon, all of us. How old are you? Kaleth asked suddenly. You speak of events thousands of years past as if you witnessed them. Maya hesitated, then answered. I am 847 years old. Human longevity technology has kept me alive since before the Silent Fleet was formed. I was there when the elves left Earth. I knew your ancestor, the one who founded your bloodline. Her name was Kaleth as well. You were named after her. The revelation struck like a physical blow. Kaleth looked at Maya and saw ancient eyes staring back at her. This woman had lived through ages, carrying the burden of defending a galaxy that feared her people. Before Kaleth could respond, alerts began screaming throughout Luna Base. Lisa Chen burst into the chamber, her face pale. They are here. 3 Devourer scout ships just breached the outer rim. They are heading for the Arcana colony. Population 40 million. Maya transformed instantly. The weight of centuries crystallizing into pure command presence. All forces to battle stations. Deploy the primary fleet. Beth, coordinate with the council militaries. Lisa, activate the consciousness dampeners. The room emptied as people rushed to their positions. Kaleth stood frozen for a moment, processing everything she had learned. Then Veyrath nudged her gently. "We must fight," the dragon said. "Personal grief can wait. Those 40 million lives cannot." Kaleth nodded, pushing down her emotions. She had been a warrior for 200 years. She knew how to compartmentalize. They ran to the docking bay where her ship waited, now upgraded with human technology. The battle for Arcana lasted 6 hours. Earth's silent fleet engaged the Devourer scouts with weapons that bent reality and manipulated time. Council forces, coordinated by Beth Cooper, provided support and evacuation for the colony. Veyrath flew alongside human fighters, his ancient dragonfire burning across dimensions. Kaleth piloted her ship through impossible maneuvers, targeting Devourer weak points that Maya's tactical data provided. She saw the enemy up close for the first time, ships of twisted metal and flesh that seemed to writhe in space. They broadcast psychic screams that would have paralyzed most species, but the consciousness dampeners protected everyone. They won, but barely. 2 of the 3 Devourer scouts were destroyed. The third retreated, carrying information about Earth's defenses back to the main fleet. 30,000 colonists had been lost despite the evacuation efforts. In the aftermath, Kaleth stood on the bridge of Maya's flagship, watching the debris field. Lauren Price approached, her empathic abilities having helped coordinate rescue operations. "You fought well," the young Zalanthian said. "Your anger gave you focus." Kaleth looked at her. "My homeworld was destroyed by these things. My people have been running from them for 3,000 years without knowing it." "Yes, I am angry. Channel that anger," Maya said, joining them. "We will need it." The scouts were just the beginning. Long-range sensors show the main Devourer fleet. Tens of thousands of ships. They will arrive in 2 weeks. Lisa appeared on a display. "Commander, analysis of the Devourer debris confirms our worst fears. Their technology is based on corrupted human designs. They know our weaknesses because they were us. This is going to be the hardest fight humanity has ever faced." Maya looked out at the stars, her ancient eyes reflecting light from distant suns. "Then we prepare for 2 weeks and we make every moment count. Contact all council worlds, begin evacuation of vulnerable systems, activate every defense platform, wake every ship. If this is the end, we face it together." Kaleth felt Veyrath's presence in her mind, steady and sure. They had 2 weeks before the storm arrived. 2 weeks to unite a fractured galaxy. 2 weeks to prepare for a war against humanity's darkest reflection. The fight for survival had begun. 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Every species contributed what they could to the defense. The Zalanthians provided shield technology. The Morphians offered their expertise in subspace manipulation. The Xanthari, humbled by their earlier defeat, sent their entire remaining fleet to join the defense. Even species that had never fielded military forces before began training soldiers and building weapons. Luna Base became the command center for the entire galactic defense. Maya coordinated fleets from 40 different species, while Lisa Chen worked with council scientists to enhance the consciousness dampeners that protected minds from Devourer influence. Beth Cooper oversaw the evacuation of vulnerable worlds, moving billions of civilians to fortified safe zones. Kaleth spent those 2 weeks training with human pilots, learning to use the upgraded systems in her ship. She flew practice missions with Veyrath, the dragon matching pace with fighters that could bend space around them. They developed new tactics combining ancient dragonfire with modern human weapons. Lauren Price worked alongside Kaleth, using her empathic abilities to help coordinate the diverse forces. The young Xylanthian had become a bridge between species, translating not just words but emotions and intentions. She helped soldiers from different worlds understand each other, building trust that would be vital in the coming battle. On the 13th day, Kate Morgan made a discovery that changed everything. She had been analyzing the Devourer's scout remains, comparing their technology against ancient human records. What she found made her call an emergency meeting with Maya and the senior staff. The Devourers are not just using corrupted human technology, Kate explained, projecting data across multiple displays. They are still partially human in their core consciousness. Parts of them remember what they were before the corruption. That is why they hunt us so relentlessly. They hate what they have become, and they hate that we represent what they lost. Can we use that? Beth asked. Can we reach the human parts of them? Kate shook her head. The corruption runs too deep, but it gives us a different option. If we can contain them rather than destroy them, there might be a chance to reverse the corruption someday. With enough time and research, we might be able to save them. Maya was silent for a long moment. Then she pulled up classified files that only she had access to. The collapse engine, a weapon of absolute last resort. The display showed schematics for a device that could create a localized collapse of SP. A C-time essentially creating a pocket dimension separate from normal reality. Anything caught inside would be trapped forever, unable to interact with the outside universe. We built this after the Vex War, Maya said. As insurance against threats we could not defeat conventionally. The collapse engine can trap the entire Devourer fleet in a pocket dimension. They will be contained but not destroyed. Someday, perhaps, they can be saved. What is the cost? Lisa asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. It requires a human consciousness to guide and maintain the collapse, Maya replied. Someone has to go inside and hold the dimensional walls stable. Forever. Without that anchor, the pocket dimension will collapse and release everything inside. The room fell into heavy silence. Lisa and Beth both stepped forward simultaneously, volunteering. But Maya raised her hand, stopping them. It has to be me, the commander said quietly. I am the oldest. I have lived long enough to see the cost of our choices. I have carried the burden of command for 800 years. This is what I was kept alive to do. No, Lisa protested. There must be another way. There is not, Maya said with finality. I have known this since we first detected the Devourers returning. Why do you think I stayed alive so long? I was waiting for this moment. Kalith had been listening from the doorway. Now she entered fully with Veyrath close behind. The elf had been processing everything she had learned about her heritage, about the connection between humans and elves, about Maya knowing her ancient ancestor. There is another way, Kalith said. Veyrath and I have been discussing it. Dragon magic and elven abilities can manipulate consciousness and dimensions. Combined with human technology, we can create a shared anchor. 3 beings sharing the burden in rotating shifts. Maya turned to face her. That would mean you spending 1 month per year inside the dimensional prison, conscious but isolated, for potentially thousands of years. You would sacrifice your freedom. I have lived 200 years running from truths I did not know, Kalith replied. My people fled when humanity needed them. I will not repeat that mistake. Besides, 1 month per year trapped is better than 1 person trapped forever. Veyrath added his voice. Dragons live for millennia. Time flows differently for us. I can bear longer shifts if needed. Between the 3 of us, we can maintain the prison indefinitely. Kate looked at the calculations. It could work. The mathematics supported. A rotating consciousness anchor, each taking turns holding the dimensional wall stable. It would require perfect synchronization and absolute trust between all 3. Lauren stepped forward. I can help with that. My empathic abilities can create a mental link between you. You will not be alone in the prison. You will feel each other, know each other is there. It will not be easy, but it will be bearable. Maya studied Kalith for a long moment, then looked at Veyrath. The dragon met her gaze steadily, and something passed between them. Ancient recognition. The memory of when dragons and humans had fought side by side. Very well, Maya said finally. We do this together. Prepare the collapse engine. We have 1 day left. The Devourer fleet arrived exactly when predicted. Sensors showed 20,000 ships emerging from the void beyond the galactic rim. They were massive, each one larger than the biggest human vessels. Their hulls writhed with organic components. Twisted metal and flesh merged into something that should not exist. At their center was the largest ship, the flagship of the entity called the Void King. He had been the captain of the Prometheus once before the corruption. Now he was something else, a being of hatred and hunger that commanded the swarm. The Void King broadcast across all frequencies. His voice was human once, but now it carried undertones that hurt to hear. Humanity. We have come for you. You abandoned us. You left us to die in the void. Now we return to consume everything you are. Maya responded from her position on the bridge of Earth's flagship. You chose to merge with that dead god. You chose power over survival. We are not responsible for your choices. The void. King laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Then face us. Face what you could become. Face your own reflection and despair. The battle began. Earth's silent fleet, now joined by forces from every council species, engaged the Devourers across 3 star systems. It was the largest space battle in galactic history. Weapons that could shatter planets fired continuously. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Dragons flew between vessels, their ancient fire burning across dimensions. Kalith fought alongside Maya's personal squadron, her upgraded ship performing maneuvers that would have torn a normal vessel apart. She targeted Devourer weak points, exploiting knowledge that Kate had gathered from the scout remains. Veyrath flew in formation with her, his massive form shielding smaller ships from enemy fire. The battle raged for 3 days. Despite their power, the Devourers were overwhelming through sheer numbers. For every ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. The defenders were being pushed back, forced to give ground system by system. On the 4th day, Maya made the call. Activate the collapse engine. All forces retreat to safe distance. Kalith, Veyrath, meet me at the deployment coordinates. The massive device was deployed at the center of the battle space, a sphere of strange metals that hummed with barely contained power. Maya arrived first in a small shuttle, followed by Kalith and Veyrath. Lauren was there too, ready to establish the mental link that would bind them together. The 3 anchors positioned themselves around the device. Lauren reached out with her empathic abilities, creating threads of connection between their minds. Kalith felt Maya's ancient determination, Veyrath's timeless patience, and her own burning resolve. They became linked, 3 separate beings united in purpose. Maya activated the collapse engine. Reality screamed as dimensional walls began to form. The Devourers realized what was happening and surged forward, desperate to stop it. But it was too late. The pocket dimension opened like a hungry mouth, pulling everything nearby into its depths. The Void King howled as his flagship was drawn in. 20,000 Devourer ships followed, unable to resist the pull. And at the center, holding the dimensional wall stable, were 3 consciousness anchors: human, elf, dragon, working together as they had in ancient times. The collapse completed. The pocket dimension sealed. From the outside, it appeared as a small sphere of twisted light floating in space. Inside, the Devourers raged against their prison, but they could not break free. Maya, Kalith, and Veyrath stood watch, their consciousnesses maintaining the walls that kept the monsters contained. The war was over. The galaxy was saved. 5 years later, the council chamber on Arcturus Prime was full once more. But now Earth's seat was occupied. Lisa Chen sat there wearing the formal uniform of humanity's representative. The silent fleet had integrated with council forces, and humans were slowly emerging into galactic society. Beth Cooper commanded the combined defense forces, ensuring that the galaxy remained protected. Lauren Price had established an embassy on Earth, the first non-human to live there in 3,000 years. The barriers were coming down, and species that had once feared each other were learning to work together. In orbit around Earth, a small station had been built. It was called the Watch, and it monitored the pocket dimension that held the Devourers. Every month, the rotation changed. Maya would emerge from her shift, tired but resolute. Kalith would take her place, entering the dimensional prison for her month of duty. Then Veyrath would follow, his ancient presence holding the walls while the others rested. Inside the prison, they were not truly alone. The mental link Lauren had created remained active, allowing them to feel each other even when separated. They could sense the support, the understanding, the shared burden. It made the isolation bearable. The Void King and his Devourers still raged inside their containment, but they could not escape. And slowly, very slowly, human scientists were making progress on potential cures for the corruption. Someday, perhaps centuries or millennia in the future, those trapped monsters might be saved. Kalith sat in the watch station during her rest period, looking out at Earth below. Maya joined her, the ancient commander looking tired but content. "Do you regret it?" Kalith asked. "The choice we made." Maya shook her head. "I have lived long enough to know that the hardest choices are often the right ones. We saved the galaxy. We proved that different species can work together. We showed that the monster within can be faced and overcome. That is worth any price." Veyrath emerged from his quarters, his massive form filling the observation deck. The dragon looked at both of them, his ancient eyes glowing softly. "We are the guardians now," he said. "We stand between the darkness and the light. It is a worthy purpose." Below them, Earth turned in its orbit. Humanity had finally taken its seat at the galactic table. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as protectors. They had taught the galaxy that true strength came not from the power to destroy, but from the choice to protect. Earth's seat had been vacant because humanity was guarding everyone from the darkness. Now it was filled because they had taught the galaxy to guard alongside them. Together, different species faced the universe, stronger for their unity. And in the space between moments in the prison dimension, 3 guardians took turns holding back the night. They were tired. They were sacrificing their freedom, but they were